I keep getting comments on my other videos, the clean out my closet videos, about how it's all firewood and it's all junk. You know, you could think that if you've grown up doing nothing but watching gear demo videos of Fenders. Today's video is sponsored by Native Sons Goods, makers of the highest quality woven guitar, bag, and camera straps you'll ever see. Native Sons straps are handmade one at a time in the USA with unparalleled love and care. Click the link in the description to check out their new expanded lineup featuring all new 3-inch guitar straps. And remember, when you support my sponsor, you support this channel, and I sure appreciate it.
Hey y'all, it's Shitpost Friday.
Hey, how's it going, fellow human beings? Brad the Guitologist is here, and it is time again for Shitpost Friday.
Shitpost Friday.
First up, the Shitpost Friday. On a sad note, we lost Aspen Pittman, the inventor of groove tubes. It's a company that he started where he rebadges tubes that he would buy in bulk from these tube companies. He would run them through his various testers, and he would match these tubes and sell matched pairs of output tubes. You guys are more than familiar, I'm sure, now with matching pairs of output tubes and, you know, how that's considered, you know, such a big deal in the amp world. And he also is the author of the book, the Tube Amp Book, and this is an earlier version. This is like version 4 or something, but, you know, in it, it's got a lot of schematics, just kind of a really helpful desk reference manual to have around. It's got discussions of different modifications that you can do to different types of amps and things like that. There are a lot of tube data sheets, things of that nature in here. But again, if you have the RCA manual, you don't necessarily need this. But it is nice to have a lot of this stuff in the same, you know, place still. It also has a really cool section in here on, you know, some with pictures of some vintage amps and things like that. And the front of this book has a lot of old catalogs with old amplifiers and things, so you can kind of see all of that stuff and the history of amps and you know, how amps were marketed in the early days with advertising and stuff like that. So kind of a neat little book. You know, I have mixed feelings about groove tubes, and kind of always have. I would much prefer really to, you know, buy tubes either in bulk or from another company that does the matching, because they tend to be a lot cheaper, to be quite honest. Groove tubes, though, they've built up the company and they've built up the brand to a point where they can charge a little bit more because it's a recognizable brand. They've been in guitar centers for a long time. They've sold through musicians' friends for a long time. And so, you know, they've been on the landscape of tube gear for quite a long time, since at least late 70s, I think early 80s is when he started coming onto the scene and doing the groove tube stuff. So just real sad that he died, and you know, definitely a luminary in the tube amp world. So if you're somebody who tunes into this channel to, you know, see the tube amp stuff and some of the mods and going through schematics and things like that, if that's your bag, then you know, you've lost a luminary in Aspen Pittman. So rest in peace, Aspen, and hopefully your family can find peace as well. Also, within the past week or so, we've lost David Berman of the Silver Jews. Silver Jews is one of those lo-fi indie bands that started in the early 90s or late 80s, I think even. And Dave Berman was kind of the brains behind that band, and there were a couple of other guys that he played with in that band that went on later to form the band Pavement. And you may actually be probably more familiar with Pavement than you would even be the Silver Jews. But Silver Jews was kind of predated Pavement, and it's kind of one of those bands that inspired a lot of the 90s lo-fi undercurrent that went on. You know, there was a whole subsection of music really in the 1990s that was just really focused on getting back to roots, doing things really lo-fi, recording things on tape recorders and just releasing it. You know, the concept of a demo was kind of lost on these people, you know. But you know, really good songwriter though, a lot of good lyrics in Silver Jews stuff. If you haven't heard any Silver Jews music, definitely check them out. Like I said, it's you know, it's an acquired taste if you haven't really exposed yourself very much to stuff that's not mainstream radio, rock ready stuff. You're going to struggle at times to keep up with lo-fi indie music from the 1990s. You just are, you know, and even the 80s too, like Sonic Youth, stuff like that. But if you're kind of attuned to that sort of thing, you know, you definitely would probably like some Silver Jews music. And you know, it's a big loss, David Berman. He was 52 years old. Not really sure what caused his death, I don't think, at least not according to the articles that I read. Could have been suicide, could have been, you know, drug-induced. It could have been natural causes. Nobody really knows, I don't think, yet. I don't think they've released it. So anyway, rest in peace to him as well. A couple of guitars have gone up for auction. Duane Allman's SG, first of all, has fetched over $500,000 at auction. Also, his Gold Top Les Paul, on which he recorded tracks for Layla, went up for auction as well, and it achieved $1.25 million. So obviously Duane Allman is one of those guitar luminaries. He died at, I think, what was he, 24 when he died, something like that, really young. But he had actually accomplished a lot by the time that he had died, and he pretty much cemented himself in guitar history, guitar lore, in the short amount of time that he was active. And you know, the fact that, you know, 50 years really after his death, almost, you know, his Les Paul sells for over $1 million. I mean, that's really a testament to the guy's genius, to his ability. I'm not sure where that places him on the hierarchy of, you know, most expensive guitars of all time, but I would say it's probably in the top 10. Okay, so I saw the eye-popping price on this Duane Allman Les Paul and thought I would go ahead and talk about the top price guitars of all time, but couldn't really find an updated list. So here's an updated list. First of all, we got David Gilmour's 1969 Black Fender Strat, which sold for almost $4 million recently. The Reach Out to Asia Strat, which sold for $2.7 million. That's kind of a weird guitar with an interesting history. Jimi Hendrix's Fender Strat for $2 million. Fourth on the list was David Gilmour's 1954 Strat with the number 1 serial number. That was 1.8. Then you get to Duane Allman's 57 Les Paul Gold Top, so that's number 5 at $1.25 million. Then Bob Marley's Washburn at a cool $1.2 million. That's a lot of money for a Washburn. Number 7, David Gilmour's Martin D35 for $1 million or thereabouts. You got Eric Clapton's Blackie Strat for almost $1 million. Another Eric Clapton ES 335 guitar there. Another Eric Clapton guitar. I think these were all sold at the same auction, all these Eric Clapton ones, in the past 5 years or something. So, and then you got Stevie Ray Vaughan's Fender Strat, and then at number 12 is Duane Allman's SG. So yeah, so there's your up-to-date rundown of the most expensive guitars of all time. And not a single one of them was a first act. I saw this article the other day as well in Forbes, and I thought it was pretty interesting because it kind of points to this way in which science and scientists are doing their outreach. And it's interesting that this isn't the first time that scientists have used the guitar as a device to reach across, to try to reach out to the general public and you know, spark the imagination. I don't know what the angle is really, but it's just interesting that they're using guitar so much, especially lately. Not too long ago that I also reported on it, where they were doing nano guitars, like tiny microscopic. I mean, we're talking about electron microscope level strings that would vibrate, and they could only be picked up in a certain way, and just crazy stuff like that. But then they've done this. It says, physicists are playing the guitar to demonstrate the potential of quantum radio. And so what they're essentially doing is they're using certain atoms as radio receivers. So apparently there are certain atoms that can receive radio transmissions. And if they can receive radio transmission, of course, that also means they can receive regular signals, such as audio signals. And this scientist who is behind this, I suppose, also plays guitar and has decided he wants to record an entire album's worth of stuff in this fashion. So he's basically transmitting his guitar via radio waves, and it's being picked up via these atoms and then transmitted back, or analogs converted somehow. Don't pretend to understand exactly how it's being done, but you can read this article and check it out for yourself. But yeah, just interesting stuff. And what I really took away from it is just the fact that, you know, scientists, with all their, you know, pushing forward into all these new frontiers of technology, how they're coming back to things that are familiar to the general public, such as the guitar, you know, something that a lot of people still love and a lot of people still use and play, in order to kind of communicate these ideas or get these ideas out there or popularize these ideas. Also, I thought this was really interesting. This crazy-ass ESP guitar. Pretty much, I think every year around NAMM, ESP, you know, they'll come out with these guitars and release these funky, crazy custom guitars. And I thought this one was actually really cool. This is Godzilla, you know, and his tail is the neck. And this thing is like $52,000. But the thing is, if you compare it to some of the, you know, other high-end guitars from other, you know, from custom shops that sort of do this sort of thing, like maybe Martin or Gibson, $52,000 for one of these extremely limited guitars is probably fair enough. But I just thought this one was really neat. ESP actually does some really awe-inspiring stuff. There was one year I remember they had a guitar that, you know, there's no way you could play the thing. It was basically just a huge sculpture. It was like a big angel with wings spread out or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was just crazy. And there was really no way to play it. It was like you had to reach through or something to play the thing. Okay, the final bit of news I really wanted to cover is, this might be the most important news that we cover here today, and that is Donald Trump's tariffs will definitely be hitting the guitar market. This according to Guitar.com. Part of his $300 billion in tariffs against Chinese imports will include guitars. They have already included, according to this article, some accessories such as guitar cases. But this is pretty big news. This news story hit on August the 2nd. I meant to report on it last week, and I did not do a shitpost Friday last week, so we'll talk about it this week. But yeah, man, this you know, the thing with tariffs is that's going to really rock a whole lot of industries. It's going to really punish the U.S. consumer, if I'm honest. It's not a good move. I'm not really a protectionist, you know, as far as economics goes. I think the way that, you know, Trump has used tariffs so far, he's using them to gain leverage in negotiations. I don't think he wants the tariffs to remain, but at the same time, he's using them, he's imposing them to gain this leverage. And if it's a game of chicken too, because if the other side says, well, fuck you, we're just going to put tariffs on you, then you've kind of screwed yourself, you shot yourself in the foot. And the only thing that is going to salvage the economy at that point is going to be more quantitative easing, which, if you guys are old enough to remember, quantitative easing basically means money printing. So we're going to be back to money printing. And you know what happens when we start money printing? Refer to my last shitpost Friday on putting money in gold and silver if you want to know how to circumvent all of that. The thing is, at least a lot of these companies have diversified. They're buying from factories in Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam, some of them in maybe India. So, you know, there's a lot of places from which they are, Taiwan even, I think, maybe, on some parts. So there's a lot of places where this stuff is coming from now that's not just China. So it's possible that a lot of this stuff can be diverted and moved if it gets too expensive coming from China. But that also is going to be very disruptive to the supply chain, and it's going to cause prices to go up anyway, because as they're trying to retool these other factories to basically take off the burden of the Chinese losses, you know, there's going to be downtime in that. There's going to be lost production, and all this stuff is really going to equal higher prices for the U.S. consumer. So a 10% tariff will be issued on an additional $300 billion of Chinese products beginning in the 1st of September. Okay, so that's what, that's in a couple weeks. And then after that, you know, the prices are going to go up. I don't think I've really heard many other guitar channels even talking about this, but this is actually really big news. Okay, so that'll do it for the news. I just had one package I wanted to open this shitpost Friday, and it's from actually DR Strings. Representative of DR contacted me the other day, and actually, good on you, DR. You're one of the few actual, I think the thing about my channel is I'm kind of in a weird category, because I think most of my growth on my channel has been in the sort of electronics, educational, you know, that sort of vein. So it's not really, I don't do demos, you know, product demos and stuff like that for guitar gear. So I think, you know, most guitar companies, they sort of overlook this channel. But, you know, DR was kind enough to reach out and say, hey, you know, and the guy who, Anthony, I believe his name was, who contacted me, said, you know, hey, I enjoy your channel and want to send you some stuff if that's okay. I said, sure, man. I love your strings. Anyway, always did like DRs. And he sent me here some, let's see what we have. I told him my gauges, but that was about it. He sent me some Pure Blues. What are these, 9 to 42s? I like 9 gauge strings on most of my Fender scale stuff. I like 10 gauge strings on my Gibson scale stuff usually. He's also sent me these Veritas strings. What is it? Quantum nickel. It comes with 3 bonus strings. I wonder why that is. What's up with that? Interesting. He's also sent me some of these dragon skin strings. Never heard of these, but I think these are DR's version of coated strings. Let's see, what does it say right there? You can read that if you want to. That are supposed to feel like they're not even coated. And then I've got some 12 to 54s in, what are these? These should be phosphor. Yeah, these are phosphor bronze. So yeah, thank you DR, thank you Anthony. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna stick some of these strings on some of my guitars that are in actual way overdue for string changes. So yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. This is a 1966 or thereabouts Guyatone made Lafayette. Actually, this one is unusual because it's labeled Lafayette and not Kent. A lot of these were labeled Kent by Guyatone. And it's LG130T. The T stands for tremolo. 3 pickups. You have an on-off switch for each pickup. You have a tone wheel right here, which doesn't appear to be doing anything. I'm not. Well, no, it does. I think when you engage the rhythm, and then the tone is not bypassed. In one of these positions, I think it's bypassed. And then you have an overall master volume. This master volume control right now is dirty. But that's about the only thing that's preventing this thing from being usable right now. Action is extremely low. You're missing the arm. Somebody carved Danger in there.
Danger's my middle name.
And did some relicking on it, which I wish they hadn't done, but it's not too bad. They just kind of added a little bit of light relicking, which is silly. Probably some kid. But anyway, they didn't completely destroy it. The tuners have actually been upgraded. Normally I would have had like a 6-to-a-side tuner thing. But these actually are not, they're not too bad. You can't even really tell without looking real close that they've been changed. It still even has the Made in Japan little sticker there. It's not a sticker, it's a little plate. I keep getting comments on my other videos, the clean out my closet videos, about how it's all firewood and it's all junk. You know, you could think that if you've grown up doing nothing but watching gear demo videos of fucking Fenders, you know, you would think that all this stuff is just junk. But the thing is, you can get some really good tones with this stuff, and it's tones that you're not going to get with any of that other stuff. If you like your tone to be just completely homogeneous and like everyone else, then by all means, go buy a fucking Squire and you're going to probably sound like Eric Clapton. low E string is a little bit dead. That could the strings definitely could be changed on this, but you get the idea. This is not going to sound like a fucking Fender. You know, you're going to be able to get different tones than a Fender. I'm sitting right beside the amp too, so it's going to be a hell of a lot noisier than usual. The pickups are microphonic as hell, which is a good thing because you're going to get that microphonic snap on all the notes. Alright guys, let's look at the weird guitar of the week. The weird guitar of the week this week is this thing that I found at my local music go-round the other day when I was in there, and I just was in awe of the fact that this thing even exists. It seems like, you know, the longer I'm around guitars, you know, obviously the more I'm going to learn, but every now and then you find something that's so off the wall you had no idea it even existed. And this guitar company, I had no idea Toyota guitars ever existed. You know, obviously we've got Suzuki guitars. I'm aware of those. I'm aware also of Yamahas, of course, but Toyotas. Never seen a Toyota guitar in my life. This is a first for me. But yeah, it definitely gave me a bit of a chuckle. I thought, you know, is the model name of this like a Celica or something? I looked inside the sound hole, and sure enough, no, couldn't get that lucky to have it be a Corolla or a Celica. But I also saw this left-handed bass. This is a 1976 Fender precision bass that I thought was really cool. You don't see very many left-handed Fender basses from the 70s. This is a rare bird. If you guys are looking for one of those, I know where one is sitting right now. Also, we went to an antique store, and this place is closing down. It's kind of a long story, but needless to say, this dude still doesn't want to come off anything, even though he's having to close his store down. But I saw this in there, and this is a 30s or 40s, I can't remember, Seeberg jukebox. I happen to know somebody, Uncle Doug, is a restorer of jukeboxes. If you look back far enough in Uncle Doug's history, the channel Uncle Doug, he has restored a bunch of jukeboxes, and he goes through those, the fastidious restoration of those. This one, he said, was probably not worth getting, surprisingly enough, even though it's $650. He said because that broken piece of plastic on the front pretty much makes it impossible to find. I figured just for the parts, somebody would want this thing. I mean, it's so so unusual. So it looks like a spaceship to me. I've never seen this model before, and I just thought it was extremely unusual. Would look really cool all lit up. But if you guys, any of you guys are interested in this, I can tell you where that is too. Just shoot me an email. Maybe you can work something out with the owner. All right, guys, that'll do it for Shitpost Friday. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit subscribe down below. And for now, y'all take care.